Hi guys, this is Rick Douglas here making my very first YouTube tutorial video, and I'm actually making it about probably the most popular, most requested topic that a lot of artists get, and that is how do I draw an eyeball? More specifically, I'm going to be covering how do I draw a realistic eyeball. I'm going to go ahead and start with the type of paper that I'm using. This is a Strathmore Bristol Smooth paper. The tooth of the paper that you choose to use does play a large role in your end result. The next thing that I'd like to cover is the type of pencils that I'm using. I do have two mechanical pencils that are my favorite. I prefer mechanical pencils over wooden ones just because it does have a constant sharp tip. That's really the only reason. The top one is a 0.5 millimeter. It does have an HB lead inside of it. The bottom one is a 0.7 that has a 2B lead inside of it. So this one's really good because it is a little bit darker and a little bit thicker. It does lay down some really nice blacks whenever I do need it. And this one, because it is a 0.5 millimeter, is really good at getting those details in those really tight places. Next thing is going to be your eraser. Now this eraser is your typical kneaded eraser. I know a lot of artists have these already in their arsenal. That's because they're extremely useful. There are a ton of different things that you can do with this. Because it is moldable, it is really versatile. And it is extremely easy to clean. All you have to do is pull it apart like this and then put it back together, and it cleans itself. It's awesome. The next thing that I'd like to cover is the type of blending stumps that I use. Now I use three of them, one for the darks, one for the mids, and then one for the lights. The dark one, it has a lot more graphite on the end of it. As you can see, it's pretty dirty, and I intend to keep it that way. And the next one's not as dirty as the dark. It's really good for around the nose, things like that. It's not quite dark, but you need to lay down some graphite. And then this one is my highlight one, or the lights. I use this one like on the whites of an eyeball, things like that. Alright guys, almost at the end. The next thing that I use is tissue paper. Whenever you choose some though, it is extremely important that you just get the regular generic one, I guess, that does not have lotion or aloe vera or anything. That way you're not rubbing lotion all over your paper. The last thing that I'd like to cover is a horsehair brush. This is really good at taking the debris off of your paper while not smudging or messing with your artwork. I believe I got this one at Hobby Lobby for just a couple of bucks. It's been a long time. It's really, really handy. And that's it. Let's draw an eyeball.
Alright guys, I figured I'd go ahead and commentate over the time lapse just to kind of help explain what the heck I'm doing. I'm starting off with the outline, and then you'll see me shade in the pupil here, and that's generally what I do first on any drawing, is that I'll start with the eyes, and more specifically within the eye I'll start with shading in the pupil, and then I'll use that graphite to kind of bring out some of the iris as well. So you'll see me shave from the pupil out onto the iris. I also do the shadow that's underneath the eyelid at the top of the iris too. Sorry about the focus here, guys. I didn't realize it was out of focus while I was filming, and it goes on for a few minutes, but it does come back into focus. You'll also see too is that this is where I'm adding the reflection in the eye. A good rule of thumb is to keep that reflection kind of covering the pupil, but also at the bottom of the shadow from the eyelid. So just kind of keep it in between there somewhere, and that's a good placement for a reflection. You'll also see that I bring out some of that shadow down and around the sides of the iris, and I also bring it out on the whites of the eyes, and this really helps add a lot of depth to it. And this is, yeah, now you're starting to see me kind of pull some of that graphite from the pupil down and out onto the iris. Now what I do is that I keep adding graphite to the pupil, so as I smudge it down, it kind of turns it from a nice black to kind of a grayish color. It makes it really dull, and so you'll see me keep adding graphite to it as I bring out more and more graphite onto the iris. And that actually takes me to my next point. One of the things I wanted to say about my drawing style is that I do everything in layers. Layers, layers, layers. I draw almost everything in layers, including things that you probably wouldn't expect, such as eyelashes. I draw eyelashes probably like 3 or 4 layers or so. And throughout the video, you'll see me add graphite, then I'll blend it in, and then I'll add more graphite, and then I'll blend it in, and I'll just keep doing it until it looks natural, until I like the depth. And these layers, they add a huge amount of depth. That's the whole reason why I do it. So it makes it look really natural. It takes away almost all hard lines. And what I mean by hard lines is that in real life, there's no hard lines out there. So by drawing everything in layers, everything looks really natural, soft, and it flows really nice. But the downside to it is that it does take a lot of time. This whole eyeball, I would say, probably took me about a little over 3 hours, probably like 3 hours, 20 minutes, something like that, to do the entire thing. A good case of me drawing layers is going to be especially relevant whenever you see me start the eyebrow. I think I did probably a good 9 layers on the eyebrow. I'm starting to add a little bit of detail to the iris, trying to add some depth to it. I made it pretty dark and now I'm trying to lift some highlights there. And again, this is just a layer, so it's not going to look right at first, and that's perfectly fine. And definitely try to let the tools do the work for you. You'll see me add a layer there of darks, and then I'll use some of those darks to see what works, what doesn't work, and then I'll accentuate the ones that do. And then I'll do the same thing with the highlights. I'll lift out some of the highlights, and then I'll accentuate the things that I like, and then I'll blend in with the ones that I don't. Because of the size of the eyeball too, and the size of this drawing, and this is a huge amount of space that I needed to put graphite, I found myself using the tissue paper a lot more than I normally do. And it was working really well, so I kept doing it. But I normally don't use tissue paper that much. On the size of like a typical commission piece, I'll usually use tissue paper like on an arm, or just over a larger surface area. It's generally not used around an eyeball. You actually start seeing me add some subtle changes into the skin. If you don't blend them in, you'll see me blend them in, but right now it's kind of aging the eye whenever I added some wrinkles or some flaws and blemishes to the skin. If you don't blend them in and make it subtle, it can age it, and if that's not your intention, then I definitely recommend taking a clean tissue paper and just blending it in. And if you found that you blended it in too much, then that's fine. You can actually just take your eraser, add another layer to it, and then just delicately blend it in again until you like the subtlety. It's hard to see it on camera, but in person those flaws in the skin really do pop. It looks really good. I had to make an adjustment to the eyebrow there, it just wasn't lining up right. But I started putting the placement of the eyelashes here too. This isn't the final layer of the eyelashes, that's just another layer just to kind of show me where I'm going to put them. And I'm trying to add as much dark onto the corner as possible. And as you guys know, graphite has a shine to it, so I was trying to fight the shine throughout this video. Unfortunately, I was sitting kind of close to a window, so if you saw me in person, I was moving my head all over the place, just trying to find the right lighting. Oh darn, sorry about the camera guys. Doesn't look like the focus wanted to cooperate today. As I'm drawing it, I figured out, yeah, I really do want to make this a little bit darker, so I'm bringing the shadow down a lot more onto the whites of the eye, and I'm kind of fluffing up the eyelashes. I wouldn't say that it's realistic, but it definitely makes it look nice. This is the first layer of eyelashes on the bottom too, just trying to see where I'm going to put them. I decided, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and darken up the bottom of the iris too. So it's dark around the edges and at the bottom, and that looks really good in some cases. Here's my first layer on the eyebrow. You'll see me blend it in, and then I'll forget about it for a little bit. I like to jump around all over the place. Another key thing to keep in mind while you're drawing eyelashes is to draw them in clumps and to try to avoid any kind of straight lines. While I'm doing the eyebrow here, you'll see kind of the lines that I'm using. I'm trying to make it up as I go. Just what feels natural. The hair generally stands straight up towards the nose, and then it kind of lays down a little bit as you go to the outside. See me adding another layer here, trying to find the darks. And more blending. And then another layer of darks. I'll keep going just until I like it. And it might take a while. Now I'm lifting up some highlights just to bring those out. I'm kind of liking where it's at, but it needs to be a lot darker, so I start adding more darks. And you'll see it's a little bit harsh. It still looks pretty harsh. You could still see some of my pencil lines in there. So I blend it again, and then I add more darks. I keep going until whenever I add a pencil line, it just blends right in. You can't even tell that I'm adding pencil lines. All you can tell is that I'm drawing dark shapes. And so this one, I'd say I probably did, oh man, close to a dozen. Close to a dozen layers on the eyebrow. And the size of it does play a role. So if I'm just drawing a smaller portrait, like a commissioned piece, something like that, then it generally only takes, maybe 2 or 3 layers. But because of the size of this, it does take a little bit more. Lifting more lights out there. And adding more darks. And I just keep going until I like it. And sometimes if I don't like it, even after like layer 5 or layer 6, in order to keep myself from going crazy, I'll just go somewhere else and work on something else on the drawing. In this case, I started the bottom eyelashes. And you'll see, again, my eyelashes in this drawing aren't necessarily realistic because they're almost too perfect. But it does make it look pretty, so I decided to go with that style anyway. I fluffed up the top eyelashes. They're almost unrealistically fluffed. And the bottom eyelashes are a little bit too uniform, but they look pretty good, so I decided to keep them. I'm trying to add a little bit of depth to the inside of the nose there. Starting to wrap it up, and you'll see me trying to add my final details, adding my last little bit of darks to the eyebrow. Alright guys, that's just about it. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and please let me know what you guys would like to see next. I was leaning towards how to draw realistic hair next, but if there's something else you guys would like to see, leave a comment down below. And until next time guys, I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a good one.